let me see. So what we have here is a Sagittarius full moon here at on the 23rd of May 2024 in Melbourne. It is at 11:42. That's also in Sydney and Brisbane. Eastern Australian Eastern Standard Time. I've got to remember to keep saying that. At 11:42 p.m., very close to midnight in the evening. But this, what we have here, so here it is at 2 degrees of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So this is a Jupiter ruled moon after the sun has had a conversation with Jupiter. And look, both Jupiter and the sun are right at the last degrees of Taurus. Now, this is huge because Jupiter, Jupiter, sorry, the sun has moved into Gemini already. So, but the Jupiter and Venus at 29 degrees, and this is so powerful because especially for Jupiter, Jupiter has been in Taurus for over a year now and has been plodding along, expanding, moving, changing with this Uranus as well. And now it's having these final words of Taurus right at this Jupiter full moon at 2 degrees and 55 minutes of Sagittarius, who is the archer, is the expansion, it is the, taking what we've learned from this deep transformation and shooting out and dreaming something else. Yeah.
Absolutely. And because the moon gives us a very embodied way of experiencing the sky, this is really a precious moment to connect with Jupiter and what it has meant for Jupiter to have been moving through Taurus for a year. So if you feel inclined, the invitation here is to reflect on the last 12 months that have been and to lean in with your moon prayers around ending well with Jupiter at this point. Like, what last things are being illuminated by this beautiful, mutable, fiery Jupiterian moon that are encouraging us to end well in that Taurian sort of way.
I just love it
And
too with this final conversation with Jupiter and Taurus. So Venus is there showing up, having an aspect to, another aspect to another sextile, to this Neptune here in Pisces, like this connection between the dreaming and the unbounded energy and the unbounded realms. This Jupiter of expansion in its under its moon, and with Venus there in its home sign, like this is so friggin' beautiful. It's so lovely. I just love this. I love this full moon.
it's really, really special, especially with some of the more fraught lunations that we've had recently. I think that the new moon, with the Venus co-presence in Taurus, that we talked about using the Six of Pentacles as a way into the story of that was that lush, beautiful, fertile soil to be beginning with. And then here we are with the growth that has come from that moment. And yeah, Venus and Jupiter are the two benefic planets. So they're the two planets which are considered, for lack of better words, like most lucky, most supportive, most beautiful, most magnanimous, all those kinds of things. And when those two planets meet up in the sky, it's like not just the best party you've ever been to, but you learned some cool shit while you were there. And like it was a spiritually expansive moment where you realize just how beautiful the world is and how glad you are to be here. Like it's it's all of those things. It's the gorgeous relational Venus, with then also this deep belonging and meaning that
Mhm.
Jupiter brings as well in that lush, fertile space of Taurus. And I think that it bears recognition that at this point, both Venus and Jupiter are only 3 degrees away from the sun, which means that they are both heavily combust at this time. They are not in supercharged, powerful positions as a result of sweating from the heat of the sun in this moment. So if the sun was another 15, 20 degrees away, this would be a hella epic moment in time. And even though it is super beautiful, and has a lot of potential, it's important to remember that Venus and Jupiter are still very much sweating it out near the sun there. And so rather than expecting fireworks and all these big, amazing things to happen, what might be a better way of approaching this would be yeah, rather than expecting material change, to engage with it in a more reflective way of how do I want this to feel? How do I want this to look? What is the potential of this full moon to grow out and expand out into other moments in time when those Jupiterian and Venusian parts of myself are a little freed up and have a little more time on their hands and are able to really dedicate themselves to something that means a lot to them.
Absolutely. And just hearing you describe that, what it feels like to me, just looking at that, and it feels like, just lying on the earth and just full gratitude and just spread out, looking at the stars and just, dreaming of this beautiful world that, we are cultivating here and that we are on at this point in time. Like it just feels that, especially here on this land with next to the IC, that's the roots. Like, you're sitting with the roots, you're sitting on the earth, lying there in the quiet spaces and just really feeling the multidimensional layers of everything that is here in this wonderment and beauty. But it's not the party, but it's the sitting with and being with in the inner spaces. And also to mention that the sun is now ingressed in Gemini, which is why it's a Sagittarius full moon. But that here at 2 degrees, it's making a trine aspect. Again, the trines are starting to come in with Pluto, which last it met with that grand entrance of Pluto into Aquarius back, January 25th or around about that time. Like, we are now, after all this journeying in this first quarter and over of this sun moving from away from Pluto, it's now able to look at Pluto and seeing all the hard work it's been transforming as it's been, in tricky positions with Pluto here as well.
Yeah, and sorry, my daughter just came home and
Oh,
is
isn't it funny?
I'll say hello to her in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think spoke to what I was trying to find in my words and couldn't quite find. Like, I think that while I love full moon prayers, that sometimes they can become shopping lists of what we
Mm.
want to manifest in our life. And this is a perfect example of, like, now is not the time to ask for a favor from Jupiter or Venus, but it is an excellent time to pay our respects and to realign our devotion and to lean into gratitude. And I feel like the nature of that would be like, you'd lean in and you'd think, damn, I'm so grateful for this thing. And Jupiter or Venus would be like, oh, yummy, 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 give me some more. And like, you'll just find yourself on this big gratitude high, and you don't need to ask for anything to experience that. And I think this is a beautiful moment of recognizing Jupiter and Venus, while in this beautiful position, have things to tend to. Like, don't ask them for shit right now. Like, I'm cooking dinner, can I have a hot second please? Like, it's one of those minutes where you just have to focus on this other thing that you're doing. But if that small person comes up to you while you're cooking dinner just to say, I love you, mummy, oh, I am available for that gratitude. Like, that is something I can stop and connect with and be like, yes. And you give something back in that attention. Like, it's the reciprocity and the confirming of that relationship that we're in through gratitude, rather than hoping that this means something that we can gain from.
Absolutely. And also, I've just seen that this moon is making a sextile to Pluto here too. So even more of a call to really just be with and not to call in changes, but to just be thankful for all that you've moved through over the last few months. Like it has been an enormous 3 months to get to this point. And here on this land, we're moving into winter solstice. You know, this is a time for reflection and honoring of what has been and
Yeah.
just seeing the new shoots that will come up from that, preparing for spring. But at this point, it's like, wow, this has changed and shifted, and that really hurt, and that was a bit ouchy. But wow, I got through it, and here I am under this full, this expansion of this Jupiter led full moon, and really taking that moment to just be with the greatness of our cosmos and our earth and our bodies and whatever the earthly thing in Taurus has shown you of the beauty that that's here for us all. And I feel like that coming back to what you said earlier is like that belonging, like feel yourself belonged here, but not just of the earth. Like Jupiter here in Sagittarius is pointing out to the cosmos, shooting its arrow out that you're not just a citizen of the earth, you're actually a citizen of the galactics, and when you take yourself out into that space, you see that you are one in everything. Like there's no disconnection out there. Like we are actually one with everything. And this is, I feel that what we spoke about at the beginning of this podcast is now this is a full illumination of that. How fun is that?
Yeah, it's such a big, beautiful moment. And the fact that there are so many aspects happening, the full moon itself is an opposition between the sun and the moon, but we have, if we just look at the fact that the sun, the moon, and Pluto are all at 2 degrees, like there's a really beautiful, cyclical, ongoing, like looping melody
Mm,
being played through the fact that they are all in dialogue with each other. The sun can see the moon and Pluto, the Pluto, and like vice versa. They all see each other in this moment, with Venus and Jupiter tied into that seeing as well. It really is a moment to lean into that looping melody of the cosmos. And you said that so beautifully. Like we're not just earthly citizens, we are cosmic citizens of the universe as well. And I
mm,
think that this is a moment to, by choice or just randomly, that we may find ourselves really noticing that. And I think that if what we experience is the opposite, and perhaps we feeling an absence of something or feeling a disconnection, what I would invite you to here is to just sink a little deeper into that and see if beneath that suffering, that holding isn't actually waiting for you. Like sometimes that suffering at feeling alone or disconnected is the first layer of the love that's just hiding beneath. And so there is an opportunity here not just to lean into that cosmic citizenship that we have if it feels obvious, but also to hold yourself if it doesn't, to give yourself permission to feel what's there. And like you said, Eve Pluto does that. It just asks us to be present to what is.
mm, mm,
Um, and to remember that, yeah, beneath that it is still there even if we don't feel it. And this is something I say to my clients all of the time, is that just because something feels real, and just because we're having a big feeling around something, the feeling is real, it doesn't make the story of that feeling true. So
mm,
if we're having big feelings around not feeling belonged, or feeling that there are obstacles to feeling connected to this world and this life and this cosmos, that feeling is so real, and we don't undermine that, but it is worth remembering that feelings are feelings. They're not necessarily truly aligned with the story beneath those feelings, and that may be a really potent moment to lean into that if you have been feeling depressed or disconnected or a little bit set aside at this
mm,
time, that this would be a moment to, if you are able and willing, to gently challenge that, and just see what rises to meet you in
mm.
that.
And what I'm hearing, what you're saying is, this sun in Gemini, it can be quite heady. It is an air sign, and and I'm just thinking of the mutable air sign that things, different stories running through that's
Yeah,
quickly changing, that can get us caught. But also, what I'm hearing is forming, and what you're just saying is this Venus and Chiron conjunction that is moving together, just to be aware of getting stuck in your head and getting stuck into the stories that, may not be true at this time. They might have been at some other time, but in this time and moment of this full moon, are they really real or not? Is it mythology, or is this Mars? Be careful of the anger that might come up from the stories that may not be true, that because we're getting stuck in our head. And just to come back to the simplicity of what Taurus with Venus and Jupiter here are calling us to do, looking out in the wider cosmos, is just come back to the earthly body, come back to the simple beauty that is here, and expand that, as opposed to get caught in our heads in the stories that Chiron and Mars might be starting to stir up now. Mm,
absolutely. And I feel too, to just mention, as you've highlighted on the visual here, is that yes, we're looking at these planets at 2 degrees, the sun, the moon, and Pluto, all within these trine and sextile aspects. Like that's quite potent to have
yeah.
them all, yeah, in this looping conversation, but recognizing too that Neptune at 29 degrees is within a 2 degree orb of that. So even though there is a sign barrier, even though it's not quite as potent as those planets at 2 degrees. With Neptune being at 29 degrees of Pisces, it's adding another point
Mm,
of dialogue to this larger conversation, which is even more deeply weaving in
mm,
Jupiter and Venus also on the 29th degree. So 29 to 2 degrees across that sign barrier is a very, very alive area of the sky in this chart, and Neptune does, it's really pulling in the dreaming and the macro cycles, the bigger cycles that we are connected to. And it's challenging the illusions that we perpetuate in our own lives. Like, gosh, this few months really is just such an incredible, it's so full of potential to break free of stories.
yeah.
And that's where I think this full moon, it's like, it's such a warm, it feels to me like a hand reaching out from somewhere that you would rather be, and a smile meeting you. It's like, are you going to grab my, like, clasp my hand so I can pull you over here into this space you're dreaming into? Like, do you have the courage to challenge these stories, which is what Mars in Aries is doing with the North Node and Chiron? And these moments where that cosmic love is so abundant and obvious and open to all. Like, can we dissolve what we thought was true or real and challenge that to be more where we would rather be? It's
Mm.
it's quite phenomenal, actually. Like, there's this larger story at play, and we've hit a 2 hour mark at
Oh
this
my
point at
goodness.
4 p.m. And there was a whole Chiron story we wanted to talk about, and I'm going to say right now we need a whole other 2 hours to start that. But if that story of challenging wounds and beliefs, and challenging what's healing and what's not, speaks to you,
Mm.
keep an eye out for a future episode, because we are absolutely going to talk about the incredible, potent configurations that have been happening with Chiron, the wounded healer, over this last few months, and how that will unfold into the next few months. So yeah, if you're really feeling the resonance of that, keep an eye out, jump on our Patreon, and make sure that you're following us so that you get notifications of a future Chiron episode coming soon.
Absolutely. There's lots to talk about when it comes to Chiron. Chiron's been really speaking to us, at least since February. It's been massive. But the leading to this full moon is big, with, the sun ingressing into Gemini, that Venus and Jupiter conjunction. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on the day after, and the
Mhm.
couple of days after. This last bit of May, it is just feels like one thing after another, after another, after another. Um, it's yeah, and I think we continue to get challenged in terms of that reviewing of that Chiron story, especially in the lead up to that Mars conjunct Chiron. I mean, that's a pretty big aspect.